UIC Pavilion in Chicago. This is Roller Derby. Hi, this is Dave Eddy, bringing you today's action between the Bay Bombers and the All-Stars. Right now, let's go down to the track and pick up the action. First period just getting underway. Sherry Eric and Wilma Ryan. The All-Stars comprised of many of the top stars of the IRSL. Sherry Eric, former roller derby queen, is one of them, and she's out on the jam against Wilma Ryan of the San Francisco Bay Bombers. We're at the UIC Pavilion in Chicago. Roller derby returning after 11 years to the Windy City. Secondary jammers coming up as Wilma Ryan goes down. It's a 2-on-1 as Joan Weston at the back of the pack hammers Sherry Eric with a block. Dolores Tucker back there. And she puts down Terry Nabnet. Tucker moving on the jam now. Eric goes high on the track and going on the inside for the point is Dolores Tucker. Joan Weston taking out Jan Ballo on the play, and the Bombers get the first point and lead 1-0. Tucker, who doesn't jam all that much, but at the start of this game, she was wearing the pivot helmet, and she gets the first point of the game. 1-0 in favor of the Bay Bombers. Looking at the team lineups for the All-Star team of the IRSL, number 21 is Pam Johnson. Number 24, Debbie Montez. 25 is Terry Nabnet. J.J. Burton wearing number 26. Number 27, B.J. Peterson. Number 28, Sherry Eric, who was out on that first jam. And the women's captain of the Midwest Pioneers and one of the great All-Stars, number 29, Jan Ballo. Jam getting underway. Out first is B.J. Peterson, right behind her, Francine Koshu, one of the great matchups of the IRSL. Koshu hits her with the block and gets the lead and then cuts it off. A wise move by Francine as she was outnumbered on the jam 2-1 as J.J. Burton was coming up. Heads-up play by Francine Koshu, returning after a 9-year absence, having a great season, averaging 10 points a game for the Bay Bombers. That time wisely cut it off. We'll take a look at the San Francisco Bay Bombers, the world's champion women's squad. Number 31, Gail Gatlin. Number 32, Debbie Williams. 34, Dolores Tucker. 35, Francine Koshu. 36 is Wilma Ryan. The Golden Girl, Joni Weston, the women's captain of the Bombers, wears number 38. And wearing number 43 tonight is Mary Borman. B.J. Peterson breaks away, and right behind her, Francine Koshu. Francine misses with a block. Now coming up again, B.J. sidesteps her. Now B.J. hits her from behind with a block, hits her again. Very rough by B.J. Peterson, and down goes Francine Koshu. B.J. Peterson all alone on the jam, and she has a formidable opponent at the back of the pack, Joan Weston, the women's captain of the Bay Bombers. And Ballo takes out Dolores Tucker, and B.J. has an easy point. Now Ballo working on Weston, rides her high on the rail, going on the inside. B.J. Peterson, she's got a bundle before she cuts it off. And she picks up 5 points, a grand slam. She got a point for Francine Koshu, who had gone off on the infield at the beginning. That was the first point. And then she got Dolores Tucker, as we'll see on the replay. A grand slam by B.J. Peterson, as there's Jan Ballo taking out Joan Weston on the play. Joan trying to get around, but the pack was all bottled up there up on the rail. Going by real easy, B.J. Peterson. A grand slam puts the All-Stars up 5-1. 6.5 minutes left to go in the first period. Pack will reform. Pivot skaters with the solid black helmets at the head of the pack, and the blockers, of course. And then the jammers with the stripe on their helmets. Dolores Tucker breaks away. Dolores Tucker doing some jamming for the Bay Bombers here in the Windy City. And coming out after a whip is Sherry Eric. And Tucker. Tucker hits with a block. Another block. A knee block. And down goes Sherry Eric. Tucker went down herself, and the pack actually caught up with her. Now Terry Nabnet has the lead on the jam. About half a minute left of jam time. And they're going to have to really fly around this track to get into scoring position. Tucker does something about it right there as she downs Terry Nabnet, who goes up over the rail. Dolores Tucker moving on the back of the pack. Joan Weston back to block. A double block being shut up by Eric and Ballo. Weston and Tucker talking it over. Here comes a whip. Weston breaks up the double block. Going by is Dolores broke up that double block of Sherry Eric and Jan Ballo, left them on the deck, and the Bombers get 2 points. It's 5-3. We'll see the replay as Joan Weston gets the whip from Dolores Tucker. We see skaters down on the track, and Dolores Tucker cutting it off after 2 points. Referee's trying to get the pack organized. 5 skaters on each side, 2 jammers, 2 blockers, and a pivot skater. The object, very simple. The jammers to get around the track, and for each member of the opposing team they pass, you get credit for a point. Sounds easy, it's very rough, though. It's a simple game, but very physical. Jammers working their way up. Francine Koshu breaks away. J.J. Burton for the All-Stars. B.J. Peterson for the All-Stars. Francine going to see if she can outrun the 2 of them. J.J. and B.J. giving hot pursuit. Here comes Francine Koshu on the back of the pack. Joan Weston there to lead the charge. She's got Jan Ballo in her sight. Ballo got the play. And a point for the Bay Bombers. Great skating by Francine Koshu. The Canadian Spitfire. She just outraced their opponents, B.J. Peterson and J.J. Burton. Joan Weston had her sights set on Jan Ballo, as you see here. Coming out of that turn, here comes Francine. Francine down low on the inside. Joan Weston does the job on Jan Ballo, cutting it off for the point before Joan Weston could be scored on by the 2 All-Stars coming up. Heads-up play makes it 5-4. All-Stars over the Bay Bombers. 3.5 minutes left to go, first period. Game consists of 2 halves, each with 4 periods. The periods last 10 minutes. They alternate periods. When the women are finished, the men will take to the bank track here in the Windy City at the UIC Pavilion in Chicago. Great to be back here with roller derby. Sherry Eric breaks away from the pack. Tucker gets out, and now she gets the whip to Joan Weston. Jan Ballo also breaks away. Both pivot skaters out, along with Sherry Eric and Jammer. Eric comes down, and now it's the 2 pivot skaters. Jan Ballo, Joan Weston, they have every right of a jammer here. Once a jammer starts, the pivot skater has the right to go out on the jam, and that's what we have here, both of them. Joan Weston for the Bombers, Jan Ballo for the All-Stars. Normally we see them at the back of the pack, but this time they're in scoring position. Weston is going to try and eliminate Ballo. Likewise, Ballo wants to eliminate Weston, so they'll be the lone scoring threat. Dolores Tucker back, talking it over with Joni. Double block, puts down Jan Ballo. And now Dolores Tucker will move on a double block. She gives a whip to Joan Weston. Weston hammers through there. Can she stay up? She got by at least 1. For the official ruling, 3 Bay Bomber points. She did get by Sherry Eric, although Eric did catch up and finally put her on the deck. Here comes the whip out of the turn. Joan Weston. Double block of B.J. Peterson and Sherry Eric, and she just blows them down. And just to stay up, look at her working the rail. She finally goes down here as they actually reform that double block, but the damage had been done point-wise as the Bay Bombers take over the lead, 7-5. The only scoring by the All-Stars so far, as you look at Joan Weston taking a breather, has been that grand slam by B.J. Peterson. Bombers chipping away with heads-up skating, scoring by Dolores Tucker, Francine Koshu, Joan Weston. The All-Stars have done it in big bunches, the 5-point grand slam. Willie Ryan trying to break away, but Sherry Eric holds her in the pack and instead whips out J.J. Burton. And now Willie Ryan breaks away. She's about a third of the lap back. The head of the pack, there's action all over the bank. B.J. Peterson puts down Francine Koshu. Those 2 go at it in the pack on the jam. Here comes J.J. She's up, and she's going to cut it off for a point. Jan Ballo knocking Gail Gatlin up on the rail for a point. Making it a 7-6 score. Half a minute left to go. They'll try and reform the pack, but very little time. Sometimes last few seconds, you'll see them even a grudge, but we've just got underway. But these people skate against each other so many times that they can hold a grudge for quite a long time. Francine Kosciu up on the rail, got a bump that time. Have reformed the pack, but 2 seconds, 1 second, and the horn sounds to end the first period of play with the score. The San Francisco Bay Area Bombers 7 and the All-Stars 6. Right now, we'll pause along this special IRSL Madison Square Garden television network. Welcome back to exciting roller derby competition coming your way from the UIC Pavilion in Chicago. Dave Eddy with the roller derby, returning after an 11-year hiatus. And the men take over in the second skating period. Their first time back on the track in 11 years, and they're bumping it around already. Mike Gammon and Joe Perez, two of the all-time great scorers of the IRSL, away on this jam. Action all over the track. Bill Grohl, Bill Hill, Charlie Gibson. 40 seconds of jam time remaining. Joe Perez hammered with a block by Bill Grohl. Mike Gammon moving up. Charlie Gibson there to meet him. Gibson rocks him with a block. Down goes Joe Perez. Grohl moving up. Trying to get over with Mike Gammon. He's got 20 seconds of jam time remaining. A whip between the legs of Charlie Gibson with Mike Gammon. He cuts it off. Wild skating action. Gibson tries to hit Mike Gammon. All he got was track. Up skating by Mike Gammon. Mike Gammon, who could literally skate before he could walk. Gets the first men's point and gives the Bombers an 8-6 lead. We watch the replay. Bill Grohl giving the whip here. And down under goes Mike Gammon between the legs of Charlie Gibson for the point. Cutting it off. Heads up play by Mike Gammon. Looking at the lineup of the IRSL All-Stars for the men's team. Number 23, Joe Perez. Number 24, Earl Pearson. 26 is Frankie Macedo. We have two men wearing number 27 tonight, Charlie Gibson and Billy Williams. Number 28, JoJo Stafford. And number 29, Bill Hill. Very strong All-Star team taking on the Bay Bombers. Art Corsi breaks away for the Bay Bombers. And here's Larry Lewis as well, breaking out against Earl Pearson. Larry Lewis pulling away from the two jammers, the All-Stars. Lewis back there, he gets by Charlie Gibson. Cuts it off. As Earl Pearson, Frankie Macedo couldn't catch up with him. And Charlie Gibson trying to get at Larry Lewis. He's had a tough time with the Bay Bomber jammers so far on this one. Here comes Larry Lewis. It off. 9-6 in favor of the Bay Bombers. The Bombers men's squad. Number 32 is Larry Lewis. 34, Tim Patton. 35, Mike Gammon. Number 36, Frank Apodaca. Number 38, the men's coach and general manager, Bill Grohl. Art Corsi is wearing number 41, Frank Russo, 42. Bill Grohl, who in warm-ups often wears the baseball cap of the Chicago Cubs, is now back in Chicago. He's having a great time. With a helmet for the Bay Bombers. Bill Grohl. JoJo Stafford with a pivot helmet for the All-Stars. Bill Hill breaks out. Give a whip here to Frankie Macedo. Frank, you skated many years here in the Midwest. Breaks away on the jam. Joe Perez. Very strong IRSL All-Star team for the men. Working at the rear of the pack on Grohl. Apodaca taken high up on the rail for a point. And Macedo finally cuts it off. I believe Joe Perez, the secondary jammer, got in for some points. Bill Grohl still down on the deck. 4 All-Star points. Gives the All-Stars a 10-9 advantage. As you get a shot there of Nick Skopas, the infield coach of the Midwest Pioneers, and tonight handling the All-Star team chores. And it's always quite a job to get skaters, no matter how talented or in any sport for that matter, to get All-Stars and make them blend well together. But he has certainly done that here. And you're dealing both with a men's squad and a women's squad. Scopus, one of the best. 10-9, All-Stars over the Bay Bombers. We're in the second skating period. 5.5 minutes left to go. Larry Lewis, one of the jammers for the Bombers, and he breaks away. Followed by Earl Pearson. This is another great matchup. Earl Pearson, who skates for the New York Dynamite during the regular season, against Larry Lewis. Roland Gibson working at the rear of the pack. Bill Hill also hitting Bill Grohl. Down goes Larry Lewis up on the rail with another bomber. And Pearson's going to get some points here. Referee's trying to maintain order here. Bill Grohl was double teamed at the back of the pack by Bill Hill. As we watch the replay, here's Larry Lewis along with Earl Pearson. Lewis actually had the lead. As he comes around, now he gets hit with a block, hit with another block, and Pearson takes over the lead. And there goes Lewis down, and that's when the Bomber problem started. As Grohl was being worked on, Apodaca was up on the rail. And 2 points for the All-Stars makes it 12-9. Referees with their hands full here tonight. Great skating on the bank track. We're here in Chicago at the UIC Pavilion. Happy to bring you all the action as the Bombers take on the All-Stars. Dave Eddy trackside. Bill Grohl with the pivot helmet. Frank Apodaca out on the jam. Frank Lucido with the All-Stars. Secondary jammers have slowed up a bit. Larry Lewis and Joe Perez. One jammer for each team. You can be on offense and defense at the same time. But now it's going to be all the Bombers as Lucido goes up on the rail courtesy of Frank Apodaca. Frank moving on the back of the pack now. JoJo Stafford back there to block. JoJo hammers him with a block. Bill Hill back there also. Charlie Gibson. That's just a wall back there. Apodaca having some problems back there as they're trading off. There's Bill Hill with a block. Another block by Hill. JoJo and now Lucido puts Apodaca down on the track. They're going to whistle Frankie for skating backwards for a penalty. Apodaca goes down again, courtesy of Bill Hill. Although I don't think Frank would want it quite that way. Larry Lewis over to attend to him. Nick Scopus talking to the officials. As I've said many times, action all over the bank track. We'll see the replay. Apodaca just had one heck of a time trying to get back from that pack. JoJo Stafford, Bill Hill, and now, as you see there, Frankie Lucido. The Bombers get 2 points for the penalties, as there was still jam time remaining. So in addition to the penalties, on Frankie Lucido, Bill Hill, although Hill has not come off the track, so now he is. And the All-Stars will skate short-handed. Bombers with 5, the All-Stars with 3, and the Bombers break out 2 jammers. Larry Lewis, Mike Gammon, Charlie Gibson breaks away along with Earl Pearson. We've got all 4 jammers out. Very small pack awaiting them. JoJo Stafford, the only All-Star in that pack. They have 2 in the penalty box. Lewis, a lead jammer now, trying to move on JoJo Stafford. Gammon taking care of the 2 jammers for the All-Stars. Bill Grohl trying to drop back to give assistance. Now Larry Lewis gets by JoJo. Mike Gammon gets by JoJo Stafford, cuts it off. 1 point each way, 2 points for the Bay Bombers. 1 point for Mike Gammon, 1 point for Larry Lewis. A little dipsy-doodle skating to get by JoJo Stafford. We've got about 1:10 left to go. As you watch your television at home, we'll watch the replay monitor. As you see that dipsy-doodle skating there by Larry Lewis to get by, And pretty soon, Mike Gavin squeezes by and cuts it off. They don't need much room here on the bank track, especially when you have the talent of a Larry Lewis or a Mike Gavin. About 1/8 width is all they need to get by, and you saw it there. Bill Hill and Frankie Casino return to the All-Star lineup on the track. 13-12, Bay Bombers over the All-Stars. About a half a minute left to go here in the skating period. Frank Apodaca pulling away here. In the back of the pack and getting by for a point and cutting it off is Frank Apodaca as Bill Grohl knocked down to JoJo Snapper. You know, the IRSL television network continues to expand across the country and around the world. Cities in the United States now picking up these weekly telecasts include San Francisco, San Jose, Reno, of course here in Chicago, Kansas City, Green Bay, New York, and the list goes on and on. And we will go on and on, but this is the end of the second skating period, with the Bay Bombers leading by a score of 14 to the All-Stars 12. Right now we'll pause along this special IRSL Madison Square Garden television network. And now back to the best in professional bank track roller skating. Third skating period getting underway. Will Morayan breaks away for the Bay Bombers. Terry Anabnet for the All-Stars. Jammers have it easy in the opening jam of each period as they start out at the front of that starting line. After that, it gets a little tougher as they have to fight their way from the back of the pack. Will Morayan and Terry Anabnet out on this first jam. They've got 40 seconds of jam time remaining. Anabnet and Ryan still going at it here. Skating period here at the UIC Pavilion in Chicago. The Jammers have reached the back of the pack. B.J. Peterson working on Will Morayan. Joan Weston with Terry Anabnet. One jammer for each team. Now Jan Vallow working on Willie Ryan. Willie goes down, and going over the top and going down is Terry Anabnet. They just have 3 seconds left, and time is going to run out, and all the Jammers got on that one was the derriere on the track. No score on the play. To receive a free copy of the roller derby rules, and believe me, they're pretty easy to understand. It's pretty rough out there, but they're very simple rules. Roller derby is a very simple game. To get a free copy, just send a self-addressed stamped envelope to IRSL Rules, Post Office Box 7979, San Francisco, California, 94120. Pack will be reforming here. Joan Weston at the head of the pack for the Bombers, and Francine Cochou breaks away for the Bay Bombers. B.J. Peterson for the All-Stars. Great matchup between these two. Peterson with a block. Peterson with another block. Had the advantage momentarily. Now Francine comes back on the inside. She hammers B.J. with a block. B.J. with a block back on Francine. Francine hung out to dry on the rail. Moving all alone on the jam, B.J. Peterson. Joan Weston will be there to meet her at the back of the pack. Cochou taken high up on the rail. Manages to get back in time to get hammered by B.J. Peterson. Peterson trying to get by here. Continues to dish out punishment on Francine Cochou. Weston goes down. And Peterson and Vallow moving on the pack here. Pack tied up and going by is B.J. Peterson. And we've got a second grand slam of the night for B.J. Peterson. 5 points. B.J. Peterson being blocked by Joan Weston, gets by the two of them, and now it's Jan Vallow and B.J. Peterson moving on the rest of the pack. Good block by the All-Stars in the pack. Dolores Tucker tried to shake loose to prevent the grand slam, but couldn't. 5 points for the All-Stars makes it a 17-14 game in favor of the All-Stars over the Bay Bombers. Live IRSL games will be coming up all over the country in the very near future. Today we're in Chicago with a great crowd on hand, cheering on their favorite skaters. When these great teams appear in your city, make sure you take the whole family. So make sure you're seeing only the top stars you see here each week on television. Dolores Tucker breaks away for the Bay Bombers along with Sherry Eric. And during the regular season, they don't do a whole lot of jamming, neither one of these ladies, but here they're doing quite a bit. Sherry Eric out on the jam here, and Tucker gives a whip to Joan Weston. Joan is about a third of a lap back, but she's starting to eat up track. Joni catching up on Sherry Eric, and Eric slips by Dolores Tucker. Waiting to see what the officials had. Joan Weston got in there, but did Eric call it off in time? 4 All-Star points, 2 Bomber points. Joan Weston continued to skate and picked up 2 points before Eric could call it off. Four points for the All-Stars, 2 for the Bombers, makes it a 21-16 game. Going to reform the pack here with Joan Weston and Jan Vallow at the head of the pack. Jammers working their way up. J.J. Burton, one of the jammers for the All-Stars. A double whip to J.J. Francine Cocheux took advantage of it as J.J. Burton was a little bit off balance. And Francine put her down. Francine moving on the jam. B.J. Peterson breaks away. She's about a half of a lap back. Jan Vallow back. Joan Weston back there as well. Joan waiting for a good position, but B.J. Peterson's moving up. And Joni will have to concentrate on her. Cocheux slips by Jan Vallow. Weston blocking in the pack on Sherry Eric. They'll get another point. 2 points for the Bay Bombers. Down on the track is Jan Vallow on top of Francine Cocheux. Heads up skating by Francine Cocheux. As we see the replay, Francine Cocheux coming up on Jan Vallow. Being hit hard by Vallow. Jan signaling for BJ to come up from behind to sort of sandwich Francine. Francine outfoxed them. Got by Jan Vallow. Moved on Sherry Eric with Joan Weston's assistant. Got a point, cut it off before she went down. We have a timeout on the track, and we'll pause along this special IRSL Madison Square Garden Cable Network. Back at the UIC Pavilion in Chicago with the roller derby. The timeout has ended. I've mentioned the referees and the fine job they're doing. Let's mention them by name. Hugh Kendall, John Harmata. You know, the skaters are in great shape, and they also need their skates in top shape. And when they're in Chicago, they get them taken care of at the skate shop at 330 East St. Charles Road in Villa Park, Illinois. Keeps them rolling. Bay Bombers and the All-Stars. Jam is underway with Dolores Tucker and Sherry Eric out on the jam. 45 seconds of jam time remaining. Plenty of time as the skaters are starting to move on the back of the pack. Jan Vallow back there to block for the All-Stars. Tucker with a block. Eric hitting her from behind. Dolores hemmed in between. Block. Eric with another block puts her on the rail. Now Eric will move on the pack. Weston sidesteps Vallow. Vallow goes down. Weston hammering Eric. Again, going by for a point is Dolores Tucker. Tucker still on her skates, calls it off. She's going to get 2 points for the Bay Bombers. Dolores Tucker, never say die. As Jan Vallow a little slow and getting back up off the rail. Tucker went by her, and a nab net over over trying to help her fallen teammates as we watch the replay. Weston sidestepping Vallow. Vallow going up and over the rail. Weston working hard on Sherry Eric. B.J. Peterson is going to try and throw a block. All she got was Sherry Eric. And there's Dolores Tucker to get the point and cut it off. Eric was out on the jam, so she was not scored upon. The points came against Jan Vallow and B.J. Peterson. 21-20, All-Stars over the Bay Bombers. To receive free advance information on the next live IRSL game in your area, or to write your favorite skaters, simply drop a card or a letter to the IRSL mailing list. Post Office Box 7979, San Francisco, California 94120. Post Office Box 7979, San Francisco, California 94120. Jan Vallow out on the jam. Joan Weston in pursuit, but not for long as Vallow puts her down. 40 seconds of jam time remaining. Jan Vallow with the pivot helmet is out on the jam here. Joan Weston, also wearing a pivot helmet, is back there to block. Joan setting her sights here on Jan Vallow. Hits her with a block. Eric dropping back to lend some assistance. Now the Bombers are going to try a pull away here. A pull away by the Bay Bombers. Joan Weston remaining at the back of the Bomber attack to provide against any slip-up. Bombers with a pull away. You see there, that's how a pull away should be done. 3 seconds left, 2 seconds left, and down goes Jan Vallow. The Bombers worked the pull away to perfection that time. And by the time Jan Vallow got the assistance that she needed, she ran out of time, ran out of track, and Joan Weston put her down. Less than a minute left to go in the third skating period. The Bombers and the All-Stars, with the All-Stars leading 21-20. We've had action all over the track. We're in the third period of the first half. Dave Eddy at trackside for the IRSL here at the UIC Pavilion in Chicago. Roller derby returning. Great crowd on hand as the pack reforms. Less than half a minute. And it would take some great skating to break out, get around the pack, and score. It has been done, however. Willie Ryan out with 12 seconds, now 10 seconds left. And now Net trying to chase Willie Ryan. Here comes Willie, 4 seconds, 3, 2, 1. And she didn't quite get up there. Another couple of seconds, and the Bombers could have had a point. Jan Vallow holding on to Wilma Ryan, finally lets her down gently on the track. And we've reached the conclusion of the third skating period of play here at the UIC Pavilion in Chicago, with the scoreboard showing the All-Stars of the IRSL 21, the San Francisco Bay Bombers 20. Right now we'll pause along this special IRSL Madison Square Garden television network. This is Dave Eddy trackside, back with more exciting roller derby action underway. Fourth skating period, the men on the track, Frank Apodaca and Joe Perez out on the jam. One for each team, the Bay Bombers and the All-Stars. The All-Stars lead as we start the fourth period, 21-20. Walking going on at the back of the pack, Apodaca and Joe Perez starting to move on the back of that pack. Apodaca with a block, Apodaca puts down Joe Perez, Bill Grohl puts down Charlie Gibson. With 1 point, Frank Apodaca. 2 key blocks by the Bombers that time got him the point to even it up at 21 all. As we watch the replay, Frank Apodaca working on Joe Perez, has him off balance and finishes him off. And just about the same time, Bill Grohl lifts Charlie Gibson high up in the air and down for the Bay Bomber point. 21 all. Right now, we'd like to welcome all the fans joining us over the Madison Square Garden network and on the Channel 5 network in Italy. We're glad to have you aboard. Pack reforming. Earl Pearson trying to fight his way up. and does. Tim Patton for the Bay Bombers. One jammer for each team. Roller derby, the only sport where you're on offense and defense at the same time. You can score and be scored upon. And it happens oh so fast. Bill Hill working on Bill Grohl at the back of the pack. The jammer is coming up. Great match back there. Bill Grohl and Bill Hill going down. Earl Pearson, Tim Patton will move. Bill Grohl sends Bill Hill down. And Grohl not too happy as a penalty was called. And they're not going to allow the Bay Bomber point. Bill Grohl can't believe it. Grohl with some very hard blocks on Bill Hill. Still shaking the cobwebs. Grohl's going to go into the penalty box, but Bill Hill is going to the infield himself. So while the Bombers are penalized and will skate a man short, the All-Stars will be without the services of Bill Hill for this jam, so that about evens it up. Although, as I mentioned, the Bombers will skate one man short. Frank Apodaca will wear the pivot helmet for the Bombers. Mike Gammon, Larry Lewis with the Jammers helmets. But Joe Perez is the first one to break out for the All-Stars, and here comes Mike Gammon off a whip by Apodaca. Joe Perez, Mike Gammon, two of the all-time greats in the IRSL. They can eat up track oh so fast. They have moved on the back of the pack with 45 seconds left in jam time. Joe Perez, Mike Gammon. Apodaca back, and he hits Joe Perez. Apodaca really coming into his own as an all-around skater. Mike Gammon working on JoJo Stafford, trying to get by him. Very talented skater, JoJo Stafford. JoJo puts him up on the rail. Gammon stays up. Apodaca still working on Joe Perez. Very tough. And there's some great skating by Mike Gammon to get by JoJo Stafford for the point. Credit Larry Lewis again. One Bay Bomber point. JoJo Stafford had an idea to go back there and mix it up after the jam, but Bill Grohl came out of the penalty box just in time. As we see on the replay, there's JoJo Stafford, Larry Lewis in front of him, trying to whip him around, and JoJo went for it on the outside. Gammon slipped by on the inside for the point and cut it off. Bombers lead 22-21. Right now, we'd like to say a special thanks to everyone on the staff here at the UIC Pavilion for their help in putting on today's game. Beautiful auditorium here in Chicago, and we're certainly happy to be aboard. 5.5 minutes left to go in the first half. Bombers and All-Stars. Frank Macedo breaks away on the jam. Also, Earl Pearson and the Bombers counter with two of the best, Larry Lewis and Mike Gammon. Double team to the back of the pack is Bill Grohl. And here come the Jammers. As both Bombers are knocked out of the play, Macedo goes by and cuts it off. And fighting going on away from the officials. Apodaca in there trying to break it up. Going down is Charlie Gibson in the infield as he cleared out the Bomber bench and the penalty box. Bill Grohl is down, being hit by Bill Hill. 2 points were awarded on the jam as Macedo got by. Earl Pearson had a skate on the infield. And now they're going to say 1 point apiece. Okay, I'm wrong. Referees are right. All the time, so they tell me. Still being attended to. Trying to help him up is Frank Apodaca. Bill Grohl still on the deck. Bill Hill with jubilation and elation over that fact as the All-Stars pull out to a 23-22 lead. And don't for a minute let that quiet Southern country drawl of Bill Hill fool you. He's as rough as they come. If you ever get a chance to see him at a live game, do so. Bill Hill, very tough and very, very good skater. And just as I say that, Charlie Gibson, also one of the best, goes down. Couldn't have timed it out any better, folks. Charlie Gibson, nicknamed Buckets. He's done some stunt work in some movies you may have seen, Rollerball for one, so you know he can skate. But even the best of them go down, especially in the IRSL, because it's rough and tumble all over the track. Action all over the track as Joe Perez sidesteps Frank Apodakin's alone on the jam. Grohl being worked on at the back of the pack by JoJo Stafford and Charlie Gibson. Grohl tries to get by Joe Perez, but Perez sidesteps him for the point. Now Gibson moving on Apodaca. He's going to take him out. Tim Patton taken out very hard by JoJo Stafford. Bill Grohl coming over here right in front of our cameras with Bill Hill. Grohl very upset. And Larry Lewis has to step in. And a penalty is being assessed on Bill Grohl by referee Hugh Kendall, who has had more than his hands full here. Great action on the bank track. If you're a member of an established group or charitable organization and would like to sponsor a live IRSL game in your area, send a letter on your letterhead to IRSL Bookings, Post Office Box 7979, San Francisco, California, 94120. The IRSL is booking games across the country, just like today's game here in Chicago. And we would like to include as many cities as possible. Great chance to see live action in your home arena. As we watch the replay here, Joe Perez sidestepping Frank Apodaca, making it look very easy, and now Perez will move on the pack, which eventually got obliterated. And there Grohl goes down for 1 point. We go back to the live action, and Frank Macedo breaks away for the All-Stars. Minute and a half left to go in the first half. Mike Gammon gets a whip, and he'll go out in pursuit of Frankie Macedo. Macedo and Gammon. Gammon has caught him, and falling it off is Frankie Macedo. Heads-up play that time as Apodaca was waiting at the back of the pack. Minute 20 left to go in the first half of this game. This telecast presented by authorization of the International Roller Skating League and in cooperation with DJL Sports Incorporated. A big thank you to our director, Mr. Jim Reisinger, and to everyone on the crew for the excellent coverage of today's game. We've got less than a minute left to go, but this last jam, if it starts before the period time runs out, can and will go the full 60 seconds. Don't go away at the end of this period. We'll be right back with interviews from the stars of the first half of tonight's game. 40 seconds left. All-Stars get 2 jammers out. Macedo and Joe Perez, the Bombers, counter with Larry Lewis and Mike Gammon. All 4 jammers out here. It'll go the full 60 seconds. Scoreboard time says 25. There's 45 on the jamming clock. Gammon taking down the 2 skaters leaves Larry Lewis to move on the pack. There's Grohl working on Bill Hill. Going by Lewis for 1 point. Gammon for a point. Up and over the rail. Charlie Gibson and the Bombers score a bundle. Great skating in the pack by Bill Grohl and Frank Apodaca at the close of this first half of the Bay Bombers and the All-Stars. Charlie Gibson trying to get a swing in at one of the Bombers from over at the scorer's table, as that's where he was deposited by Frank Apodaca. And we'll watch the replay here at the end of the first half. Here's the 2 jammers for the All-Stars, Perez and Macedo. The Bombers with Mike Gammon, Larry Lewis. Just great action here at the end of the first half. They're setting up a double block. Gammon takes that out. Lewis hurdles them. And here's where Bill Grohl goes to work. Grohl with punishing blocks on Bill Hill. Takes him out of the play. There's 2 points for the Bombers. And Frank Apodaca putting Charlie Gibson up and over the rail for 2 more. 4 points for the Bombers to close out the first half of action. We've come to the end of the first half here at the UIC Pavilion in Chicago. Dave Eddy trackside with the score. The All-Stars 27, the Bay Bombers 26. We'll pause along this special IRSL Madison Square Garden Television Network. The score at halftime, the All-Stars 27, the Bay Bombers 26. At the UIC Pavilion in Chicago, this is Dave Eddy with two of the IRSL All-Stars, Jan Vallow and Sherry Eric. In the regular season, they're the co-captains of the Midwest Pioneers. Jan, must be a big thrill to be back here in Chicago.
Yeah, it is. I've been on the Midwest Pioneers on the West Coast, but I've never been on the Pioneers here in the Midwest. But we're not really representing the Pioneers tonight. We're here as All-Stars. Hopefully, we will get in here as a Midwest Pioneer one of these days. But there's divided loyalties here. There's Bomber fans and Pioneer fans, so it's interesting tonight.
You've had, again, one of your great matchups against Joan Weston at the back of the pack. You've been a little rough on some of the smaller Bomber skaters, Francine Cochou, Wilma Ryan. What do you have to say about that?
They've got to earn their dues. They've got to earn their keep. When I came in and I was younger and a little smaller, I had to pay my dues, but they're taking it. They're good competitors. You know, what can I say? I can't not be me, and they can't not be themselves. So they're going to have to expect to get a little bit of that stuff.
The All-Star team is loaded with talent, and one of the great stars is Sherry Eric. Sherry, you've done a lot of jamming tonight, and you seem to be going out against Dolores Tucker, and there's been some good matchups in the first half.
Well, Dolores and I have had a little thing going for years and years. Dolores and I have never skated on the same team. We've always been against each other, and there's been quite a rivalry there. And being back on the Pioneers, as you were saying earlier, is a great thrill. You know, I was on the Pioneers years ago, and we've got so many people back here. It's great to have the support of the Pioneer people again.
Putting together an all-star team is one thing, then also having to skate together against a very strong Bomber team that has skated together all year. A lot of credit has to go to Nick Skopas, the infield coach, for putting it all together.
Yeah, well, Nick's been around a long time, and Nick was also my coach when I skated on the Pioneers years ago, so he knows a lot about the way we skate and tries to keep the things gelled, and especially on an all-star team where you're not really gelling as a team, you know, because you're not a team member all the time, so it's a little tough, and I think it's showing a little bit out there tonight, but hopefully the second half will come back pretty strong.
Sherry Eric, Jan Vallow, thank you for coming by. Good luck in the second half here in Chicago.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave.
The score at halftime, the All-Stars 27, the Bay Bombers 26. This is Dave Eddy for the IRSL Madison Square Garden Television Network.